Consumer Reports just dropped a bombshell on the used car market, and almost no one saw this coming. Buyers weren't warned, dealers aren't talking, and the ripple effects from this single report could quietly wipe out billions in used car value almost overnight. If you bought a used car recently, or you're thinking about buying one right now, this is the kind of news that makes your stomach sink, because Consumer Reports isn't speculating. They're using hard data, owner surveys, long-term reliability tracking, and repair cost analysis that stretches well beyond the flashy first few years of ownership. What makes this report different from anything Consumer Reports has released before is the timing and the depth. This isn't just about reliability rankings or best used cars under $20,000. This report looks at what happens after 60,000 miles, after 80,000 miles, after the warranty safety net disappears. It exposes a growing gap between what used cars appear to be worth on dealer lots and what they actually cost owners once the real problems begin. Dealers, lenders, and online car platforms were blindsided because this data directly challenges today's inflated pricing model, and it suggests that many vehicles being sold as safe buys are anything but. According to Consumer Reports, a large number of popular used cars are now considered a bad idea at almost any price. These are vehicles that sell fast, look clean on the lot, and often come with reassuring brand reputations, but hide serious reliability traps between 60,000 and 100,000 miles. Transmission failures, turbocharger replacements, timing chain issues, oil consumption problems, and electronic system failures are hitting far earlier than buyers expect. These aren't rare outliers either. They're patterns showing up across thousands of owner reports. Even worse, many of these cars appear affordable at first glance, but Consumer Reports says they quietly turn into money pits. A used car that seems like a bargain at $16,000 can easily rack up $6,000 to $10,000 in repairs within just a few years, completely erasing any savings. That's where the real danger lies, not in the purchase price, but in the ownership cost curve that spikes suddenly and aggressively once certain mileage thresholds are crossed. And this is where the conversation gets uncomfortable for the industry. Consumer Reports suggests used car prices may be heading for a sharp correction, not a gentle dip, but a meaningful drop, especially for vehicles with poor long-term reliability scores. Models that were wildly overpriced during the post-pandemic used car boom are now the most vulnerable. Consumer Reports questions how long inflated prices can survive when repair data and owner complaints are becoming impossible to ignore, especially as more buyers share their experiences publicly. Some models are expected to lose value much faster than others. Vehicles with complex drivetrains, unproven engines, or early generation technology are especially at risk. Once word spreads that a certain engine fails at 75,000 miles, or a transmission rarely makes it past 90,000, resale value collapses fast, and Consumer Reports believes that collapse has already begun behind the scenes. One of the most shocking parts of the report is how it exposes reliability myths that buyers have trusted for years. Brands once considered safe bets are now being flagged as risky in specific model years. Consumer Reports points out engines that fail far earlier than advertised, transmissions that degrade quietly until catastrophic failure, and electrical systems that trigger endless warning lights and expensive diagnostics. There's a clear mileage point, often between 70,000 and 110,000 miles, where repair costs explode, catching owners completely off guard. This reliability fallout is now spilling into financing, and that's where things get truly dangerous. Consumer Reports highlights how banks and lenders are quietly pulling back on used car loans for certain vehicles. Loan terms are tightening, approvals are shrinking, and interest rates are climbing, especially for higher mileage cars with questionable reliability. Negative equity is becoming a trap, with buyers owing far more than their vehicles are worth, sometimes just months after purchase. When a used car suddenly drops in value and still carries a long loan term, the situation turns ugly fast. Owners can't trade out, can't sell without taking a loss, and are stuck making payments on vehicles that may soon need major repairs. Consumer Reports warns that this combination, falling values plus rising repair costs, is a perfect storm that many buyers are already caught in. Owner complaints bring the data to life, and Consumer Reports didn't hold back. Stories pour in from drivers who say, "I wish I never bought this car," after facing repeated breakdowns, denied warranty claims, and repair bills no one warned them about. Owners describe vehicles that spent more time at the dealership than in their driveway, and cars that became financial burdens instead of reliable transportation. Behind closed doors, dealerships are scrambling. Consumer Reports notes that extended warranties are suddenly being pushed harder than ever, not as peace of mind, mind, but as damage control. Some dealers are quietly adjusting trade-in values, steering buyers towards safer inventory, or bundling risky vehicles with expensive protection plans. Consumer Reports even warns that certain tactics may be used to move problematic cars faster before their reputations fully catch up with them. Despite the chaos, not all used cars are doomed. Consumer Reports still identifies a small group of models that continue to perform well, even at higher mileage. These vehicles survive where others fail because of simpler engineering, proven powertrains, and consistent maintenance histories. They don't rely on fragile tech or cost-cutting components, and that's exactly why they're safer bets heading into 2025. Protecting yourself now requires a completely different mindset. Consumer Reports stresses that buyers can't rely on brand loyalty alone anymore. Certain model years matter more than the badge on the hood. Mileage limits should be treated as hard stop signs, not flexible suggestions. Skipping the wrong used car today could save you thousands or even tens of thousands over the next few years. Looking ahead, Consumer Reports paints a clear picture of the next 12 months in the used car market. Some buyers will win by waiting, negotiating harder, and avoiding risky vehicles. Others will lose by overpaying for cars that quickly depreciate and demand costly repairs. And as this report continues to circulate, the pressure on prices, dealers, and lenders is only going to increase because once this information reaches the average buyer, the used car market won't be able to pretend everything is fine anymore. Consumer Reports makes it clear that this isn't a short-term scare or a temporary dip. It's a structural problem that's been building for years and is now finally being exposed. The gap between what used cars are listed for and what they're actually worth in long-term ownership is widening, and history shows that gaps like this don't close gently. They snap shut. One of the most unsettling warnings in the report is how fast perception can change. A model that's considered hot today can become radioactive in a matter of months once reliability data spreads. Consumer Reports points out that online forums, owner review platforms, and social media amplify bad news faster than ever. Once a specific engine or transmission gains a reputation for failing early, resale values can fall almost overnight. That's why some dealers are racing the clock, trying to move certain inventory before buyers fully understand what they're getting into. Consumer Reports also highlights a shift in buyer psychology that could accelerate the downturn. Shoppers are no longer just asking, "Can I afford the payment?" They're asking, "What happens to this car after 5 years?" That change alone is enough to deflate inflated prices. When buyers hesitate, inventory sits longer. When inventory sits longer, prices drop. And when prices drop, lenders reassess risk, creating a feedback loop that pushes values down even further. Another overlooked factor is maintenance neglect from the last few years. Consumer Reports notes that many used cars entering the market now were owned during a time when people delayed service, skipped fluid changes, or ignored early warning signs just to save money. Those decisions don't show up on a Carfax report, but they absolutely show up at 70,000 or 90,000 miles. Buyers are unknowingly inheriting years of deferred maintenance, and the repair bills arrive quickly and without mercy. The report also warns about the danger of feature-heavy used cars. Touchscreens, digital dashboards, adaptive suspensions, turbocharged engines, and complex driver assistance systems all sound great on a listing, but Consumer Reports data shows they are among the most expensive systems to repair once warranties expire. A single failed sensor or control module can cost more than an entire engine repair did a decade ago. These costs aren't hypothetical. They're already showing up in owner complaints at alarming rates. Consumer Reports goes even further, calling out the illusion of certification programs. While certified pre-owned vehicles can offer peace of mind, the report cautions that certification does not magically fix design flaws or known failure points. Some buyers assume certified means trouble-free for years, but Consumer Reports data shows that certain certified models still develop major issues shortly after coverage ends. Certification delays pain, it doesn't eliminate it. As this reality sets in, Consumer Reports predicts a clear split in the market. On one side, durable, proven vehicles with simple designs will hold value and even become more desirable. On the other, complex, failure-prone models will see sharper depreciation, longer time on dealer lots, and more aggressive sales tactics. The market won't crash evenly, it will fracture. What's especially troubling is how many buyers are already locked into this shifting landscape. Consumer Consumer Reports emphasizes that millions of people purchased used cars at peak prices, often with long loan terms and high interest rates. As values soften, these owners could find themselves underwater for years. That financial pressure makes it harder to walk away, even when repair costs start stacking up. And this is where Consumer Reports delivers its quietest but most powerful warning. Doing nothing is the riskiest move of all. Ignoring this data doesn't make the problem disappear. It just delays the moment when reality hits your wallet. Whether you already own a used car or are planning to buy one soon, the rules have changed, and the market is no longer forgiving. The used car world is entering a phase where information matters more than ever. Consumer Reports has effectively pulled back the curtain, and once buyers start acting on what's been revealed, the ripple effects will be impossible to hide. Prices will adjust, reputations will shift, and the vehicles that looked like smart buys yesterday may become tomorrow's biggest regrets. And Consumer Reports suggest that this is only the beginning of what buyers are about to uncover. As more long-term ownership data rolls in, especially from vehicles now crossing the 100,000-mile mark, the picture could become even more unsettling. Cars that were praised just a few years ago are now aging in real time, and the results aren't matching the marketing promises that helped sell them in the first place. One of the most important points Consumer Reports makes is that the used car market is no longer driven purely by supply and demand. It's driven by trust. And right now, trust is eroding. Buyers are realizing that glossy listings, low monthly payments, and clean inspection reports don't tell the full story. The real story lives in failure rates, repair frequency, and ownership regret, and that's exactly where this report hits hardest. Consumer Reports also warns that certain segments of the used car market are especially exposed. Entry-level luxury cars, for example, often look like incredible deals once depreciation hits, but behind that attractive price tag are maintenance costs designed for first owners with deep pockets. Once those vehicles reach second or third owners, the math stops working, repairs become unaffordable, values sink, and owners are left stuck with cars they can't easily sell. The same risk applies to lightly used vehicles that were rushed into production during supply shortages. Consumer Reports data shows quality inconsistencies, rushed assembly, and component shortages that didn't surface immediately but are now emerging as vehicles age. These issues don't show up in the first year or two, but they show up later, when buyers least expect them and warranties are long gone. Another factor accelerating this shift is transparency. Consumer Reports notes that buyers now cross-check everything: repair forums, recall histories, insurance data, and owner surveys. Once a model gets flagged as problematic, it's nearly impossible to put that genie back in the bottle. Dealers can discount, repackage, or rebrand, but they can't erase data, and that's what makes this moment different from past market corrections. Consumer Reports also caution sellers, not just buyers. Private sellers may soon discover that their once valuable used car is suddenly worth far less than expected. Trade-in offers could drop sharply, forcing tough decisions: sell now at a loss or keep the car and absorb rising maintenance costs. Either way, the financial pressure increases, and Consumer Reports believes many owners aren't prepared for that reality. As the market adjusts, Consumer Reports predicts more aggressive pricing strategies and louder incentives, but also more fine print. Extended warranties, service plans, and add-ons will be marketed as necessities rather than options. The report urges buyers to read everything carefully, because in many cases these products are designed to protect the seller's risk, not the buyer's long-term costs. The long-term implication is clear: the used car market is becoming polarized. Smart buyers who understand reliability data and ownership costs will do well. Impulse buyers chasing monthly payments will struggle. Consumer Reports frames this moment as a reset, an overdue correction where information finally catches up with pricing. And as this reset unfolds, the pressure won't stop with consumers. Manufacturers are watching closely. Poor long-term reliability hurts brand perception years after a model is launched. Consumer Reports suggests that some automakers may be forced to quietly improve designs, extend warranties, or rethink complexity altogether as their vehicles age in the hands of real owners. All of this points to one unavoidable truth: the days of blindly trusting used car pricing are over. Consumer Reports has changed the conversation, and once buyers internalize what this data really means, the used car market will never quite work the same way again. And the deeper you look, the clearer it becomes that this isn't just a market story. It's a warning about how modern cars are aging. Consumer Reports emphasizes that many vehicles on today's used lots were designed during a period of rapid technological change, range, cost cutting, and aggressive efficiency targets. Those decisions looked good on spec sheets, but years later, they're showing real-world consequences that buyers are now paying for. Consumer Reports highlights how small design compromises can turn into massive ownership problems. A thinner timing chain, a more complex emissions system, a tightly packed engine bay. Each one saves manufacturers money or boosts performance on paper, but dramatically increases repair risk as miles pile on. When these parts fail, repairs aren't just expensive, they're invasive, time-consuming, and often require specialized labor that drives costs even higher. Another uncomfortable truth exposed in the report is how many used cars are being sold right before major failures occur. Consumer Reports data shows a spike in trade-ins and listings just before known problem milestones. Owners who know their vehicle's weak points are quietly exiting before the repair bills hit, leaving unsuspecting buyers to deal with the fallout. On the surface, these cars look fine. Underneath, the clock is already ticking. The report also challenges the idea that newer is always better. Consumer Reports finds that some older designs with simpler engines and fewer electronic dependencies are actually aging more gracefully than newer tech-heavy models. This flips the traditional used car advice on its head. In some cases, a slightly older, well-maintained vehicle is a far safer bet than a newer one packed with features that haven't proven themselves long-term. Consumer Reports warns that buyers chasing low mileage alone are missing the bigger picture. Mileage matters, but design history matters more. A car with 90,000 miles and a proven track record may be a better investment than one with 40,000 miles and known failure patterns. This nuance is exactly what many buyers and even some dealers overlook, and it's why so many people feel blindsided later. As this information spreads, Consumer Reports expects negotiations to change. Buyers will come armed with data, specific failure points, and repair cost estimates. Sellers who can't justify pricing with reliability evidence will be forced to cut prices or watch inventory cite. This shift could finally bring balance back to a market that's been tilted heavily against consumers. The report also touches on insurance costs quietly rising alongside reliability concerns. Vehicles with higher repair frequency and expensive parts are seeing higher premiums and more total loss declarations after relatively minor accidents. That adds another layer of financial risk that buyers rarely consider when signing paperwork, but it directly affects long-term affordability. Consumer Reports doesn't present this as a reason to panic, but as a reason to slow down. The biggest mistakes happen when buyers feel rushed, pressured, or afraid of missing out. The market is no longer in a frenzy, and that shift gives informed buyers power they haven't had in years. And as this bombshell continues to ripple outward, one thing becomes increasingly clear. The winners in the next phase of the used car market won't be the flashiest cars or the newest models. They'll be the vehicles that quietly last, the buyers who research deeply, and the sellers who adapt to a reality where data, not hype, sets the price. And Consumer Reports makes it clear that the final stage of this shift hasn't even arrived yet. The next wave will come when large numbers of used cars hit critical mileage all at once. Vehicles sold in massive numbers just a few years ago are now aging into the same danger zone, and when those failures begin stacking up simultaneously, the narrative around normal ownership will change fast. Consumer Reports also points out a psychological effect that could accelerate everything. Once buyers start hearing consistent stories, same models, same failures, same mileages, they stop seeing those problems as bad luck and start seeing them as warnings. That's when demand drops sharply, not gradually, sharply. And in a market built on volume, even a small shift in buyer confidence can have outsized consequences. The report raises concerns about resale algorithms used by online car platforms. These systems rely heavily on historical pricing, not future repair risk. Consumer Reports suggests that as reliability data catches up, those algorithms may suddenly adjust downward, triggering rapid repricing across thousands of listings at once. That kind of automated correction could make values fall faster than many expect. Another underappreciated risk is how recalls interact with used car values. Consumer Reports notes that unresolved recalls, even for software or emissions-related issues, can delay repairs, parts availability, and resale eligibility. A car that technically runs fine can become harder to finance, insure, or resell simply because a recall remains open. As more recalls stack up, especially for complex systems, market friction increases. Consumer Reports also highlights how regional differences may amplify the impact. Vehicles sold in hot climates, stop-and-go urban environments, or areas with poor road conditions tend to experience failures earlier. As buyers become more aware of this, location history could start affecting value almost as much as mileage, another variable that wasn't priced in during the recent used car surge. What's especially striking is how quietly all of this is unfolding. There's no dramatic crash headline yet, no sudden collapse, just a slow, steady shift in behavior. Buyers hesitating, lenders tightening, dealers adjusting behind the scenes. Consumer Reports frames this as the calm before the correction, where the smartest moves are made by those paying attention early. The report also stresses that this moment rewards patience. Rushing into a purchase now without understanding long-term reliability data is more dangerous than waiting a few months to see how prices respond. Consumer Reports believes that time is shifting back in favor of the buyer, something that hasn't been true for years. As the dust begins to move, one thing is becoming unavoidable. Transparency is no longer optional. Buyers expect answers, they expect proof, and they expect honesty about what happens after the warranty expires. Any seller who can't provide that will struggle in a market that's finally waking up. And while the industry may try to downplay the impact, Consumer Reports has already changed how informed buyers think. The question now isn't whether the used car market will adjust, but how quickly and who gets caught holding the vehicles that everyone suddenly wants to avoid. And Consumer Reports warns that the next group to feel the pressure may be fleet operators and rental companies. Many of today's used cars come from high utilization fleets that prioritize short-term cost efficiency over long-term durability. These vehicles often hit the resale market looking clean and well documented, but Consumer Reports data shows they can age faster mechanically, especially once they're in the hands of private owners who expect years of trouble-free use. The report also touches on how emissions regulations and evolving compliance standards complicate the used car landscape. Vehicles that were legal and desirable just a few years ago may face restrictions, software updates, or testing challenges in certain regions. Consumer Reports suggests this could quietly suppress demand for some models, even if they remain mechanically sound, adding another layer of uncertainty to their future value. Another subtle but powerful factor is parts availability. Consumer Reports highlights growing delays and rising costs for replacement components, especially for low-volume engines, discontinued trims, or early-generation technology. When a critical part takes weeks or months to arrive, ownership becomes frustrating and expensive. Over time, buyers begin avoiding those models entirely, accelerating depreciation.